welcome to the very next episode of The Lair. And now joining me today is an individual that has known me longer than anyone in the technology career that I've had and as he had. We both started off at what is now a very large company, as TekSystems, on the help desk. Today, he has reached to be the CTO for Dell Federal Systems. Cameron Chehreh, welcome, my friend. It has been way too long.
Brother, way too long, and I'm so excited to be here and sharing this time with you. That's many moons ago, my friend, that we started on the help desk, and kudos to you, brother. What just an esteemed career that you have, and I'm excited about this session.
I appreciate it. It was 1998.
Yes, sir.
Wow, think about that. That is a long time that we've known each other. We both started off on that at help desk, and people that have never worked in a help desk, they don't get the stress of the constant calls, and a call center, I would imagine, is the same way. But I used to remember, I just loved it when every time seeing my name at the top of that board, most calls, bam, bam, bam. Loved it. And then all of a sudden I have to do a re-image, and Windows NT over the wire using Symantec's Ghost Norton at the time. And that re-image would throw your numbers off for the entire day, because I'm like, there just went 2 hours.
It's interesting, Dan, you mentioned that. I look back on it fondly, because I think what it did was created a foundation for both of us to really excel in the business, right? And excel in the industry, because we saw what good ideas look like without proper planning and without good insight into really what the business or the strategy is. So we actually saw what went wrong, right? And then had to really troubleshoot that. And I think those skills, and of course that friendship, those are the most enduring things ever. It sets the bedrock for our career.
Absolutely. And I remember you were the PeopleSoft expert basically for us.
I was, like you, Dan, right? It's a see a need, fill a need. And we didn't have any functional experts on the help desk at the time. And you saw the number of tickets we had coming in for simple things like creating accounts, updating and maintaining profiles, the beginning of what security really looked like back then, and then being able to do password resets, etc. So, thankfully, because I know you helped champion that with me, and we created that PeopleSoft, the first ever PeopleSoft security team on that help desk. It was great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really cherished all of those memories. Maybe not the two help desk managers was Rob and Karen. I didn't necessarily appreciate them, because they were just more like for all those people that are that want to know what it was like for the manager of the help desk back then. It literally was like being in the movie, to be able to sending them TPS reports, because all they would do is come around and go, check your numbers. That's right. There's a call. There's 5 callers on hold waiting. We're all on the phone. We kind of know.
Right. Right.
So, I want to know, and I don't think I've ever actually asked you this question.
Okay.
How did you wind up making the leap into technology?
It's a great question, Dan. I think you remember this about me, but I actually started off as a professional musician. So I lived a very different professional life. I learned what 15 minutes of fame or less actually looked like. Spent all the money that I earned, which was a foolhardy thing to do at 20, but did that, and then realized I had to get a real job at some point, right? Because I was struggling. I'd had my degree. My degree was in audio engineering, and I had to make this transition. I knew I was passionate about engineering and technology. So at the time, and as you stated, context is everything, right, Dan? So in the late 90s, technology was just burgeoning. I always felt that it was another outlet for me to be creative, and that to satisfy that creative part of me. So put myself through an MCSE class, started to get myself technically trained, and I made a commitment to myself that I was going to take this journey, because I found the same passion and creativity in technologies I did in music, and I saw a lot of correlations between the two. So I put myself through the class. As you know, humbly started on the help desk and started to write history from that step in the journey.
That's amazing. You know, the thing that I think TekSystems did right is a lot of people you came on board and they did them as contractors,
Yep.
and you were there for 3 days, prove that you can be here. Like they gave a lot of people a shot that probably didn't deserve one, but I liked that model. It was like, hey, you've got 3 days to see what you got.
Yep.
And poof, 6-month contract, you made it through your 6-month contract, then maybe they'd offer you, full-time gig. You know what I mean? Or they just extend your contract, because there's plenty of people that just like the contract space. But, um, you know, getting back into that, it's interesting to me that you switched, well, you were a rock star and now you're still a rock star, but in the technology space. And because you were
Humble.
not, yeah, you were not trained, from a computer science degree. And yet here you are, you've grown up, you've put in probably the same type of practice required to be a musician,
Oh yeah.
if not more, to reach to be, the CTO, Chief Technology Officer for Dell Federal Systems. I mean, it's a tremendous accomplishment, especially with the amount of people today that say, well, you didn't have a computer science degree, how can you be a CIO or CISO or CTO? And they really look down upon it because they didn't have a computer science degree. I think that's just, well, wrong. There's a lot of smart people out there. Why does it matter which degree you came off with? It's where you're at now.
Yeah, Dan, it's so fascinating. I think it's a very provocative but insightful comment, and I think your commentary is spot on. When you look at some of the best creative founders in this business, right? Because technology is a business. You and I know that, and especially today, as we talk about it, where we're at in our careers now, in regards to digital and digital transformation, and how many things are occurring from a digital world. Um, I look at people like Michael Dell. I look at people like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. It wasn't the degree, right? Because Michael Dell didn't finish school. His success accelerated. Bill Gates, dropped out of, was it Harvard or whatever Ivy League school he was in, and Steve Jobs the same thing. I think success is there's an equation to it. A lot of it is perspiration and perseverance, right? And a lot of it is,
Absolutely.
appealing to your own inner passion to drive yourself to learn and to think about these types of things to advance these careers. It wasn't an easy transition for me, Dan. I thought in musical notes and in meter and time and rhythm, and then all of a sudden I changed to bits and bytes. But there is a lot of correlation, and how you troubleshoot and how you think about things in technology to create elegant solutions. Because I know you, my friend, and I've known the things you've done, brother. Making simple is extraordinarily difficult, right? To get that experience, that Apple-like experience you and I talk about, is extraordinarily difficult. And I think it takes someone with a little bit of an avant-garde background or different thinking, complementing the engineering skills to really make that happen.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And this is something that I've been thinking an awful lot about, which is we talk about diversity. And when we talk about that, the whole diversity and inclusion, people want to think it's about, male, female, however you want to identify. But really it's about diversity of thought. And then you've got the people in technology and they go, well, you didn't have this kind of a degree. Well, if you want diversity of thought, you want people coming from a different background, because
That's
they're going
right.
to look at a problem differently, and it helps with those blind spots. I have something back here and I can't see it. I want people who have a different background that are still to have a seat at the table, because look, no one's hiring you to fill any type of quota. Not especially not at a senior level. They're just not going to do it.
Right.
It's suicide. Now, that might be a good reason that you're there, and it's what you do with it next that keeps you at the seat of the table. But I want people to think differently. And I don't care if you had a computer science background or not. As a matter of fact, some of the more stronger people that I know did not have a computer science background. And then people will ask me, like, well, like yourself included, but even others, they had foreign languages. They were they
Yeah.
had they did dance. They're all great in a respected field and transitioned. And then I just kind of go, well, the other argument is like, well, Dan, you have a computer science background. I'm like, look, I did a degree because I was already working in the field, and I took the easy route, to be honest. That was easy. I'm like, look, I just got to take these other classes, but the computer science classes, to be honest, I didn't really learn anything in my undergrad or even in my master's with that because I already knew all those things.
Yep.
So I wish if I had gone to school traditionally, I would have probably done something of an engineering field probably, or actually my mom would say would have probably been law, which the law degree is still on the table at some point. But
You do love to debate, Dan. That's true.
I did humbly have to accept the award from my class as the most likely to win a debate with the professor, which is true.
That's awesome. That is awesome,
Yeah.
Dan. No, but you make some pretty interesting points when you think of the diversity aspects, Dan. I mean, you know me, right? I went from being a musician and a little bit of a rebel, right? Because you have to be a little bit to go against the grain, to being very passionate about diversity for the exact reasons you talked about. I lovingly refer to this as my team of wingdings, right? The wingding characters. And I love that because there's a simple beauty in that chemistry when that team comes together to solve just extraordinarily complex problems. It is amazing to watch these individuals come together as a team from all these different walks of life, all these different thought patterns, and that healthy tension, not the distress, but that eustress, that healthy tension that brings them together, and it makes for great teams. And you're spot on with that, man. I'd much rather have that than just do it to satisfy some sort of specific metric or goal, because I think there's a lot of value in what diversity creates. And you talk a lot about data. You and I are pretty analytical. The data shows organizations that embody it truly as part of their culture, 5 to 7% more revenue by just having a diverse culture, and more profitability doing it. So there's a lot to be said for it.
Absolutely. And I learned basically there's two answers to almost every question when it comes to business, from what I've learned from my time at Ross. One answer is it depends, and then the second answer is it has to be a benefit to, or it has to increase shareholder value. That's so right. If it's not one of those two things, then that's pretty much, well, to me that's really the answer to everything in life at this point now. Is it depends, and how does this benefit the shareholders?
Yeah.
So we neither one of us got here on our own. What leaders out there really kind of influenced you to be where you're at today, and what, or even on the negative side, like, look, that's a great example of a bad example. And it's not a leader; it was a manager, and I need to get away from this person.
That's a great question, because Dan, this is going to probably be a little bit of a non-traditional answer, but brother, it's you and I talking, so I think you'll enjoy this. When I first got into business, and if I look at my background, I had no business being in corporate America this long. My father was a physician, lifelong physician, so he was a small business owner. I knew a lot about the medical profession, but couldn't stand the sight of blood, so I didn't get into the family business. When I got into this business, it was a very hard adjustment for me to go from this unstructured, creative background to a structured corporate America that operates in a very specific way. I saw more examples, Dan, of the latter of what you talked about, of what not to do, what not to be. But as I grew in my career and I took these deliberate steps in my career to get to where I wanted to go, I began to recognize, I mentioned a few, I really have an admiration for Michael Dell and what he's done with this company, and the fact that he's still leading the company and the principles he puts in the company, just extraordinary. And that's been very inspirational for me to be able to work for one of the last founding CEOs that still exists in the business, right? Jack Welch was interesting. The book was interesting. The principles were interesting, but to me, it lost a human feel to it. So I didn't really aspire for that. I've always been inspired by Steve Jobs for a couple of reasons. One is not his management style, let me be clear, but it was about um, this just maniacal focus on the customer experience, right? To be able to build solutions and build things in this creative manner, and this elegance and simplicity. So that was really inspirational for me.
Would you say that Steve Jobs was kind of like the Walt Disney in the technology world?
What a great analogy, Dan. I've never thought about it that way, but absolutely correct. Um, it is this highly creative, highly intellectual person, but has been able to bring a simple elegance to people's lives, as we see that everyone can relate to based on how big Apple grew. But I've been fortunate in my career also to be exposed to unsung heroes, people that you don't think about a lot, but I've learned a great deal from. I've had a lot of orals coaches, because you have to, be able to do public speaking in some of these roles and these types of things. And I had the orals coach for former President Ronald Reagan when I was working at a job back at Northrop Grumman, and just really valued some of the teachings and the learnings I got from him as an orals coach. And but I think more importantly, Dan, honestly, is having supported the DoD and the intelligence community and a lot of the civilian government for a long time. There's so many unsung heroes that I've had the honor to work with that are former military, not high ranking. Some are high ranking. Some have reached the status of general or, et cetera. But just some of the leadership they display and just their demeanor, their integrity, and what they do, it's humbling, and it makes you really think about what kind of leader you want to be as a person. And I think those have helped shape me into the servant leader that I see myself as, which has helped us really grow and refine our organization. So it's a blend. It's working with our customers, working with my peers and contemporaries. And there's a few named people in there, but I kind of look for those leaders that fly under the wire, because I think sometimes they're the ones that are more genuine in their approach.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And it's funny that you mentioned Northrop Grumman putting you through the orals, because that's where I had to learn my public speaking as well, because of the oral presentations we had to do for contracts. And for me, it was at BAE Systems that did it. And those, for those that don't know, one, it's fabulous training. It's amazing, and it is expensive. But when you look at the dollar amount of those contracts to these companies, it is an easy answer. It's like, yep, sign, because I need these people who can explain the technology, the processes, the people, everything involved to a very also complex thing, to maybe to some people that are not necessarily as technical, and they need to be able to understand it in their terms. So these companies, I mean, I couldn't even begin to say how much money it was. I just know it was expensive.
Yeah. And it was a great investment, right? Because you see, for our careers, you take those lessons learned everywhere, and you learn more and more about leadership as you dive deeper into that. And it's been a passion of mine throughout my career, because Dan, I always have felt not on par with other people, like you said, that have been classically trained in this business. So it's really forced me to drive myself to be a better leader, be a better technologist, and more importantly, be a better innovator. Be able to bring things to the market that can be market changing in the industry.
Speaking of things that are changing, we live in a time of COVID-19, and I'm wondering, how is technology going to change with a workforce that's very likely for the near future? I think a lot more people are going to be working from home. How do you think technology is going to change in supporting a highly regulated industry like the government, and maybe even just to the common person's day-to-day life?
It's a brilliant question, Dan, because I think we're all experiencing it a little bit now, and we're seeing the constraints of what I'll say current architectures, not necessarily current technology. And I think you might agree with the nuance. It's what we built in thinking we could do with the response, and the calculations we used, like we do for like web hosting or cloud, the oversubscription model. We've recognized that's probably not a really good architectural approach, because we are 100% oversubscribed right now with so many people in a remote setting. I think technology is doing its job very effectively, right? We have remote access to applications, we have VPN access, but I think what technology is doing now is driving a cultural transformation that's showing people that may have been naysayers before that we can do this in a, I'll say, reasonably safe and secure manner. Of course, I do recognize the person I'm talking to, which is why my cell phone's turned off and the SIM card's removed, Dan, because I don't know what the hell you're going to do to me even through the Zoom session. but you know, listen, I know that it opens up a whole plethora of conversation around the cyberspace, and we should be having those conversations without question. But I think what technology is demonstrating today is when we're faced with a human challenge that is global in nature and very real for a lot of people, if you choose, and this is the key, you have to consciously choose as a human being to choose applying technology for good to expand human potential. I think it's showing us that we can do that if we all band together and make that conscious decision to do that. And I firmly believe that, Dan. And I think the future of work really should be like what I hope I enjoy, which is I think of this job as a lifestyle. I love everything about my job, everything. I don't mind working the long hours. I traveled 46 weeks out of the year last year, didn't mind the travel. I missed my family, but I was home on weekends. But what technology is showing me is I think we can get back to being a little bit more human in the business. I think for a while we lost that. And I think Zoom sessions are like this are good. They're intimate. You get to see someone, you get to read their body language, you get to see their interaction and do things that expand your ability to get access to the talent pool. So I'm nothing but optimistic about what technology is going to do for us.
Yeah, I think you make some really great points here. And cybersecurity and saying it's reasonably secure. I mean, it's a risk-based decision.
Absolutely.
Right? And this is kind of where, at the same time, when I look at it with how we're going to open up the economy or whatever, it's a risk-based decision. If there is nothing to protect, if you're not making money, if you're not in business, then you don't have to worry about it. But we are in business, and the human element always comes into it. And this is where I'm starting to talk with my friends and colleagues, and even at work. How do we want our work to look like in this remote setting? Like, if I can't just go by and take a look at Johnny or Sally at their cubicle necessarily anymore. So now I need to use another technology, whether or not you're using Teams, or if you're a G Suite person, or Slack. I want them to know that they need to be available. And when I call them, it's a video chat. It's not, I'm looking for the phone,
Right.
because, and we can see, like, hey, if they're green, they should be available. They should be at their desk when they're still working, and prepare yourself as if you were at work. And this is what I'm advocating for, because we need that personal interaction. Don't allow for people to just dial it in. Right.
Yep.
And I think we get a lot that choose to do so. And, there'll be this aspect of people saying, well, not everyone can afford internet of this or of that. Well, if they're going to be a permanent work from home person or quasi-permanent, then guess what? The square footage of them at their house is probably worth an extra $75 a month to get them proper internet.
It's fascinating, Dan. You're striking at something that's very important. I'm kind of, I'm not over the COVID thing, but I think it's a great historical lesson to teach us. I look at Workforce 1.0, right? Which was, yeah, we work from home, but work from home wasn't, I think, as robust as it is in this post-crisis environment when you look at Workforce 2.0. And you're so correct, Dan, because before things became impersonal and impractical. Even when you were in the office, you're doing these conference calls with people. You're not getting to see them. You're not getting the human experience. In this Workforce 2.0 world, post-crisis environment, I think that the technologies available to us, not only just with the traditional enterprise, but what's coming with 5G, I'm hoping will give us access to that humanity again. Because think about this, Dan, I'm involved with an organization here called Melwood that they help people with differing abilities find more highly skilled work than just traditional, maybe groundskeeping or other things. And these are people that are on an autism scale, autism spectrum. I now have the ability to allow these people to safely work, maybe from a home environment where they can be comfortable and in a familiar surrounding so they can be productive and focused. I mean, just imagine the amount of talent we have access to now because of this type of reinvigoration of this workforce 2.0 strategy.
Right. And this is, absolutely. And this is one of my pet peeves when people go, well, now the risks changed. No, the risks are still the same risks.
That's right.
Just like it was the same thing when it came to cloud. Oh, the risks changed. No, we still got to go through, you know, on the government side in the U.S., we still got to go through the FISMA NIST framework with the 853s and whether or not it's a FedRAMP certified product and does it have their FIPS certification, blah, blah, blah. All those things are still there. Moving someone to work at home, the risk is still the same.
Yes.
Their work environment has changed to a different place. Now, what things are we going to put in place in order to remain as whatever our risk tolerance was? How do we shift that to a work from home primary model? And I think what is really going to change is the corporate real estate market.
Yeah, you know, Dan, what a brilliant, I mean, just brilliant comment, because, you know, when you think about it, prior to this environment, 70% of Dell was remote. You had your key flag posts, right? Austin, and then post-acquisition with EMC and integration, it was Boston. Everyone else was remote. So it makes you rethink a few things. It makes you rethink what user experience you want, your security profile, because in a way, to your point, Dan, I have authorized or even unauthorized devices that require access to apps and information. Well, you know, with your cyber prowess, okay, yeah, everything's exploitable. I got that. But to your point about risk and tolerance, if I take reasonable means to secure these things, has my risk profile really changed? No. In some aspects, it may have actually increased because, as you know, Dan, if I'm connecting my laptop to my home router and it's issuing it a brand new IP address every time I go to that router, and then that router, when the Comcast or whoever comes around to re-up your IP address or you reboot it, the dynamic nature of that work from anywhere location actually can reduce my risk profile if I look at the situation differently.
I agree. You know, and in these times, you know, what are some of the things that you're doing to keep yourself motivated and your teams motivated? Because, you know, you support the federal government, DOD, yeah, Intel community, you know, the Federal Reserve Bank. Those things aren't shutting down.
Right.
But our people may not be able to necessarily get to and from work. And yeah, Dell's already 70% remote, but now you all are probably even more remote.
Yeah.
Motivation is hard. What are you doing to keep people motivated?
That's a great question. You know, I've got a pretty large team that I have that directly reports to me, and I have an influence over an even larger team. I've rethought societal norms to build bridges with people. It's more than just quick phone calls and check-ins with people. It's a lot of prayer, I'll tell you that, to give me the strength to remain positive. Because Dan, you've known me, even with the times of adversity when we were struggling to get by, I try to constantly be a beacon of hope and positive, which is at times can be challenged, but I'm doing things that are interesting. I'm trying to take the technology and do like virtual happy hours with my teams, you know, and on camera. And I'm telling them, get on camera. I want you to see and feel and understand that you're not isolated. You're not alone. We happen to be afforded a gift. We're in the comfort of our own home, and we're not wasting these hours commuting on the beltway around DC anymore. You know, we now have the ability to check out of our home office and have instant gratification with our families. So I'm doing things like happy hours with virtual team building. I'm doing things like virtual lunch and learns. I'll use Grubhub or, you know, one of these other types of, you know, DoorDash types of offerings. We'll send out to a small group gift cards and say, like for Cinco de Mayo, we did a Cinco de Mayo lunch with everybody. Everyone got gift cards. We ordered Grubhub, sent it to all their houses, and we all got on camera and did a virtual happy hour for Cinco de Mayo. Now, does it ever replace human touch or human feel? Nah, nothing replaces that, Dan, but we're getting closer to keep teams together and motivated and those types of things. I mean, clearly you have your normal business cadence that you do from a team perspective, but to me, it's also more important. You have to have that balance between what you're doing to keep them connected for work, but more importantly as people.
I think that's the biggest piece that I try to explain to people is maintain your empathy for the people. Because
choice of words.
They are going to be scared. They may have never worked from home before, and it takes a discipline. It's not easy to work from home because many of us are tempted by, oh, well, I can get to that a little bit later. I'm at home. Let me turn the television on. You know, if you didn't have the television on at work when you were in the office, don't have it on, you know, at home. But on top of that, and there are challenges with, you know, the kids work, you know, having to do their e-learning, things like that.
Absolutely.
But try to get back into that routine that you always had. Now, for me, I've gone back and forth, but I feel like I'm a pretty self-motivated and self-disciplined person. So I've had to give my folks that aren't used to it, like, here's your routine, come up with a routine, schedule it out, schedule yourself breaks, because you know, people don't get looking into a monitor all day long is
fatiguing.
tough.
Yeah, it's fatiguing.
So I wrote this thing for them all, and I'm like, drink water, do this, drink some more water, do this, drink some more water, do this. I said, you know why I keep asking you to drink water? And they're like, well, why is that? Like, because you're going to have to get up and go to the bathroom, and it's going to have exercise. And so you're going to force yourself to take a couple of minute break, and that's important.
Dan, if you saw my calendar, it would scare you, because you're right. You and I have always been very disciplined, very passionate people about succeeding. I need to take my own advice. I need to take your advice, because I'm starting it now like 6 a.m., 6:30 some days, and I'm not ending till 7:30 at night. And I'm just like, wait a minute, I've got to put these breaks on the calendar. I've got to go take a walk and, you know, get some fresh air or do something. Because we have to remember it's a whole dramatic lifestyle shift, right?
It really is. And while a lot of people are scared, I'm actually excited about what the future brings.
Amen.
I think in this time, we are going to see different types of businesses are going to emerge. And like one of them, which one of my former classmates at Ross, you know, she started a secure transport business for cannabis because she's in the state of Michigan. And I think because we're going to need to replace all of this money that we're giving out in these stimulus bills, well, guess where we can make a lot of that money up pretty quickly? Legalize cannabis everywhere, and you open up. I mean, the way she was explaining everything was just amazing. Alicia is very, very knowledgeable about the regulations, and it's, you know, you need security for transport. You need it at the dispensers. You need it at the growers, and then this brings another cybersecurity element into the equation because, you know, inventory, everything has to be RFID tagged and inventory constantly, and you need to know where all this stuff is going. Well, if the criminals know where it is, well, you know, they can hack in and find out where everything is, and that's a problem. And then because now, you know, you have to, you know, that theft is going to be even different because it's still somewhat controlled like alcohol in a way in this case. But then the next piece of it right now, because a lot of these people in the cannabis industry are they just have cash. They deal in cash. How scary is that?
Well, what's interesting, Dan, you know, what a brilliant idea she came up with, because think of armored cars. They've been around since the foundation of the country, right? And I agree with you. And what's interesting about what you've said is what's old becomes new again, right, Dan? We founded the country. We had armored cars that were horse-drawn carriages with guys with guns, guards and guns. If we rethink the logical world into this digital format or this remote context, it's the same principles, right? It's about securing your supply chain all the way to the user. That's exactly what she's thought about. We do it with money transactions today with armored cars, and it passes those compliance needs. Okay, so it's a different currency. It's not cash, it's cannabis. Okay, right? But the same safeguards and controls can be put into place. I agree with you. I think it's an absolutely brilliant comment. I think we're about to see, and I'm hoping what we're about to see is the same revolution we saw when Michael Dell, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and everyone back in the late 70s, early 80s built what is now today the industry. I'm hoping this is the kick in the pants that we all needed to spur that type of innovation cycle once again.
I think it's inevitable.
Yeah.
You know, it's, and the thing that I'm always amazed is, and I don't remember which philosopher said it, but the more and more I learn, the more and more I see, the more I realize I haven't seen and I don't know. And while people are scared, we're going to get through this. It's not the end of humanity.
That's right.
There's going to be opportunity. And I think, likely, same example with you, the reason why we are where we are in our careers today is because we didn't say no to an opportunity. It's not luck. We just said, I'm not going to fail.
Right. I can't. It's not an option. Dan, you know what I'm known for now at work? What's the path to yes? That's my expression. What's the path to yes? So many people know the path to no, but what kind of fun is it to walk the path to no? I constantly challenge my teams. Everything is possible. What you need to discover is the path to yes.
That is a brilliant quote. And it's funny to me because I have a very similar one in this case, because it's easy to say no.
Yeah.
I say, don't tell me the reasons why we shouldn't do it. Tell me the reasons why we should.
That's right.
Go figure that out, because it's I my pet peeve, and I hate it when people say this to me. Well, that's going to be hard.
Oh, okay.
Well, of course it's going to be hard.
Right.
If it was easy, they wouldn't need us.
And it wouldn't be worth it in the end.
Right. I don't want to do something that's just easy. I want to do the right thing the right way as often as I possibly can, which I would like it to be 100%, but I know it's not 100%.
Right.
So it is, tell me how we're going to do this. It's not a no. I already know the reasons why we shouldn't. Tell me the reasons why we should. It's fun. So Cameron, it's time to pay Dr. Ford.
All right.
Here we go. What's next for you, brother?
Dan, I'm hoping that the next thing for me is to leave a lasting legacy in this industry and in this business. And that I want that legacy to be defined by innovation, compassion, a little bit of humility along the way. And I want to make sure that every single person I work with, the one thing they remember is I was as fun as hell to work with as you could possibly be while we're achieving these extraordinary things. So for me, what's next, Dan, is a lot like you. I'm on this personal journey to do good, spread good in the world, and continue this journey of knowledge and thirst for more information. I'm on that same journey with you. So honestly, I don't know what's next, and that's the most exciting piece of it.
Well, Cameron, my friend, I really appreciate you coming on. I hope you'll come back, tell everyone what's next.
100%, Dan. I love you, brother, and I'm so grateful. I think this is the coolest idea in the years I've known you that you've come up with, and I can't wait to see where this goes.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. Cameron Chehreh.
Take care, brother.